Darkness swallowed the cold metal walls of the prison ship as it drifted silently through the empty stretch of space. Inside one of the smallest, most heavily guarded cells, an alien figure lay motionless on the floor. She was tall and proud, once a queen feared by many worlds. Now, crippled and broken, she was barely recognizable. Her once glowing skin was pale and scarred. The sharp crown of bones that crowned her head was cracked. Her glowing eyes were dull with pain. The alien queen's empire had ruled many star systems with an iron fist, enslaving entire civilizations and crushing any sign of rebellion. But fate had turned against her. The humans, a species she once thought weak and insignificant, had risen up. They had captured her in a fierce battle and thrown her into this dark cell, the same way she had done to so many others before, lying. On the cold floor, she felt the weight of her defeat crushing her spirit. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a painful reminder of her broken body. Once she had commanded fleets of warships, armies of alien soldiers who obeyed her every word. Now she was a prisoner, helpless, a shadow of her former self. From her cell, the ship hummed with activity. Now the human crew moved silently through the corridors, eyes sharp and cautious. Among them was one person who stood out, not because of strength or rank, but because of something more dangerous: hope. A single human prisoner who once wore chains under the Queen's rule now walked the halls with a secret burning inside. This human had seen horrors no one should ever endure. Slaved, tortured, and forced to serve the cruel alien queen, the prisoner had lost everything: freedom, dignity. But deep inside, a spark refused to die, the spark of survival. And now, fate was giving the prisoner a strange chance to change everything. The prisoner's name was Marcus Soldier, with no rank here, no name in the Empire's history. It's just a man who survived, who waited for the right moment. Every day, he watched the Queen, studied her weakness, learned her habits. And every night, he whispered a silent promise to himself. One day, this story would be different. But the galaxy never let things stay simple. Tonight, as the ship passed through an uncharted region of space, alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed, echoing through the ship's dark corridors. The crew scrambled, shouting orders, but the prisoner stayed calm. Something was happening, something that no one expected. The Queen's cell door slammed open. Guards dragged her out, barely able to support her weight. The prisoner watched from a distance, curiosity and fear twisting inside. Why move her now? What threat had reached this fortress in the void? Whispers spread quickly. The Queen's empire was under attack from within. A rebel faction had risen, seeking to overthrow the old rule and claim power for themselves. The ship was no longer safe. The Queen's enemies were close to close as chaos spread. The prisoner felt something strange: a chance, a risk, and a dangerous hope. The Queen, despite her cruelty, was still the key to many secrets. And if she lived, if she healed, her power could change the galaxy once more, or could destroy everything. The guards carried the Queen to the medical BA place. No prisoner was ever allowed to see. Inside, machines hummed, bright screens glowed, and doctors worked frantically. The Queen's body was broken in ways no simple medicine could fix. She needed more than treatment, she needed a miracle. The prisoner was pulled aside by the ship's commander, a stern woman who had seen too much war to trust easily. Her eyes locked onto the prisoner's. "We need you," she said quietly. "Only you have the skill to help her. Cannot afford to lose the Queen now." Mark's heart raced. Help the woman who had enslaved him? Save the very person who had crushed so many lives? It was impossible. And yet the galaxy was full of impossible choices. The prisoner hesitated. Every nerve screamed to say no, to walk away and let the Queen fade into oblivion. But the commander's words cut deeper. If she dies, the Empire falls. If the Empire falls, millions will suffer. We need you. A shiver ran through Mark's body. He looked at the crippled Queen lying unconscious on the medical table, breathing shallow and weak. In that moment, everything changed. The prisoner nodded as the human began work on the Queen's injuries. The ship shook violently. The rebel fighters were attacking, trying to take control. Explosions rocked the ship. Alarms screamed louder, and time slipped away. Mark worked with steady hands, blending human technology and alien medicine in ways no one had dared. The Queen's wounds were severe broken bones, deep cuts, internal damage, but slowly, her color began to return. The faint glow in her eyes flickered back to life. The prisoner's mind raced with questions. Why was the Queen worth saving? What secrets did she hide beneath her pride and cruelty? And most terrifying of all, what would happen when she woke? Past, the ship drifted in the void, battered but alive. The prisoner never left the Queen's side, guarding her from further attack and from those who wished her harm. Slowly, the fragile Queen began to regain strength, not just of body, but of mind. And when her eyes finally opened, the prisoner saw a flicker of something unexpected, a hint of fear. She looked at Mark, the human who healed her, the one she once thought worthless, and said nothing. The room was silent, heavy with unspoken words. The Queen's fate was no longer simple. Power had shifted, and in the cold silence of space, an uneasy bond began. But the galaxy was watching, and the shadows were moving closer. Outside the ship, distant warships approached, like predators circling their prey. The fragile peace was broken. The prisoner and the Queen both knew one thing for certain: the battle for the future was only beginning. The hum of the ship's engines was steady again, but the air inside the corridors carried an invisible tension. The rebel attack had been beaten back for now, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the next wave came. Outside, the black void stretched endlessly, broken only by the faint light of distant stars. Inside, the Queen slept fitfully, her breathing uneven, as if even her dreams were at war. Mark hadn't left her side. He sat in the corner of the medical bay, hands resting on his knees, eyes fixed on her. For hours he studied every twitch, every faint movement. He didn't trust her. He doubted he ever would. But something about the sight of the once mighty alien Queen lying powerless stirred something deep. Inside him, an uncomfortable mix of pity and hatred. She had been his captor, the architect of his suffering, yet now she was the one in chains. The door hissed open. Commander Rel stepped inside, her sharp boots clicking against the floor. She didn't waste time on greetings. "She's stable," she said in a low voice, glancing at the Queen, "but it won't last. Doubt someone to finish what you started. She won't make it through the week." Mark didn't answer right away. He let the words hang in the air, like the smoke from a battlefield long after the fight was over. "And you want me to do it?" he said finally, his tone flat. Rel stepped closer. Her eyes were hard, but her voice softened. "You're the only one here with the knowledge to treat her injuries. No one else understands both our tech and theirs. She dies." She paused, as if weighing the next words. "She dies. We lose more than a prisoner. We lose the only chance we have to end this war." Mark's jaw tightened. "She's not a chance. She's a threat. The moment she can stand, she slit our throats." Rel didn't flinch. "Maybe, but right now she's the only one who knows the location of the rebel fleet. She's the only one who knows what they're planning. Without her, the galaxy burns. Millions, human and alien alike, will die. You've seen war. You've seen what happens to the weak. You really want to be responsible for that?" Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He remembered the camps, the endless work, the screams of those who didn't survive. He remembered the burning cities, the bodies on the streets. If saving her meant stopping that, could he really refuse? Mark looked back at the Queen, even in her weakness. There was something dangerous about her, like a blade dulled by time, but still sharp enough to cut. Her breathing was shallow. Every rise and fall of her chest seemed slower than the last. He stood and walked to the bed, his shadow falling across her face. "I'll do it," he said quietly, "but on one condition." Rel raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "I want her to know who's saving her," Mark said. "Every time she breathes, I want her to remember it's because of the human she once enslaved." Rel's lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Fine, but remember this. If you fail, we all die." The days that followed were a blur of work and exhaustion. Mark used every scrap of skill he had, combining human medical nanites with alien regeneration pods. It was dangerous mixing the two technologies could easily kill her instead of heal her, but there was no other choice. The ship was running low on supplies and the rebels were closing in. Sometimes, when the ship's lights dimmed for the artificial night cycle, Mark would feel the weight of her gaze. She was awake more often now, though she rarely spoke. Her eyes followed him, unreadable, as he adjusted the machines keeping her alive. Once, late in the cycle, she broke the silence. "Why?" Her voice was soft but edged with suspicion. "Are you doing this?" Mark didn't look at her, because I was ordered to. A faint, humorless laugh escaped her. "No. Orders alone don't make a man risk his life with this experiment. You want something? What is it?" He paused, then leaned over the bed so their eyes met. "I want you to remember. Every time you think of breaking someone, every time you think of taking another world, I want you to see my face and know you're alive because I let you live." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she closed her eyes. "Hatred is a poor medicine, human." He straightened. "Maybe, but it's keeping you alive." The days bled into nights, and the tension aboard the ship grew heavier. Rebel ships were spotted in the distance more frequently now, darting in and out of sensor range like predators testing their prey. Every time the alarm sounded, Mark expected it to be the end. On the fifth day, the ship's lights flickered. The engines groaned. Over the intercom, a voice shouted, "Enemy boarding party. All hands prepare for combat." Mark's blood ran cold. The rebels were here. The medical bay doors locked automatically, sealing them inside. Outside, the muffled sounds of battle echoed through the metal walls' blaster fire. Explosions, the heavy thud of boots running down the corridors. Mark grabbed a sidearm from the emergency locker and moved to the door. "You're leaving?" the Queen asked, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'm protecting my work," Mark replied. Before she could respond, the door shuddered violently. A deep dent appeared in the center, followed by another. Whoever was on the other side wasn't wasting time with subtlety. Mark aimed his weapon at the door, heart pounding. Then the metal gave way with a deafening crash, and 3 figures stepped through rubles in black armor, their weapons already raised. One of them spotted the Queen, and cursed in his alien tongue. "She's here. Take her alive!" Mark fired without hesitation. The first rebel went down. Second returned fire, forcing him to duck behind a medical console. Energy blasts scorched the walls, filling the air with the smell of burning metal. Queen, still too weak to stand, grabbed a surgical tray and hurled it at the nearest rebel. It wasn't much, but it distracted him long enough for Mark to put a shot through his chest plate. The last rebel lunged forward, swinging the butt of his rifle toward Mark's head. Pain exploded in his skull as he fell back, the weapon skidding. Across the floor, the rebel raised his rifle again, but before he could strike, the Queen reached for one of the medical machines and slammed a charged injector into his side. The surge of energy sent him collapsing in a heap. For a moment, the room was silent except for their breathing. Mark leaned against the wall, clutching his side. "Not bad for someone half dead." The Queen smirked faintly. "Not bad for a human." The alarm stopped. Over the intercom, Rel's voice rang out, "Boarding party neutralized. Prepare for emergency jump." Mark staggered back too. The bed, helping the Queen lie down. She studied him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You saved me. You helped me," he replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Perhaps this bargain is not as one-sided as I thought." Mark didn't answer. He was too busy wondering which was more dangerous, the rebels outside or the Queen now slowly regaining her strength. The ship drifted silently through space, its wounds patched but far from healed. The rebel attack had shaken the crew, but no one dared relax. Inside the medical bay, the hum of machines blended with the quiet tension that filled the room. Worked steadily, his hands moving with careful precision over the alien Queen's broken body. Every small movement was a battle against death itself. The blend of human technology and alien medicine was unprecedented, dangerous, but it was the only chance she had. Her eyes fluttered open more often now, reflecting the dim glow of the lights. The queen no longer lay like a broken statue, but began to respond to his care. Her skin regained color slowly, the deep cuts shrinking, bones knitting together with the help of the nanites Mark controlled. Yet, despite the fragile peace, suspicion darkened the room like a shadow no one could shake. Mark never let his guard down. Every day spent near the queen was a test. Would she thank him, betray him, or strike at the moment of weakness? He didn't know what she was thinking. One thing was certain. Beneath her fragile exterior lay the mind of a ruthless ruler, sharp and dangerous as ever. The queen's first words after waking fully surprised him. "You heal well, human." Her voice was quiet but held a note of respect, tinged with caution. "Why do you help me? What do you want in return?" Mark hesitated. She asked the question all prisoners asked when faced with mercy from their captors. "I want the truth," he said simply. "About your empire, about the rebels, about why this war started." She studied him for a long moment, then sighed a sound more like a breath escaping years of pain. "The truth," she whispered. "You want the truth, but the truth is dangerous. It burns like acid and destroys what you hold dear." Mark leaned closer. "I'm not afraid." The queen's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Good then. Listen." She told him stories no one had heard before, of a fractured empire where betrayal ran deeper than blood, of a rebel faction that was not just fighting for freedom, but for revenge against horrors the galaxy refused to remember. She spoke of alliances broken, secret weapons hidden, and sacrifices made in shadowed halls. Her voice was steady, but carried the weight of years spent hiding from enemies on all sides. As Mark listened, he realized the war was not black and white. It was a tangle of lies, old wounds, and desperate choices. The queen, despite all her cruelty, was trapped in a game far bigger than herself. But trust was fragile, too fragile. One evening, as Mark checked the queen's vitals, the ship's security alert blinked red on his wrist monitor. A soft beep sounded on intrusion somewhere on the ship. Not a rebel attack this time. Something else. Mark frowned and moved to the door, activating the ship's internal sensors. The readings showed movement in the lower decks, an area restricted. Even for most crew members, someone was sneaking around. But who? The queen's eyes snapped open. "We are not alone," she said. "This ship holds secrets darker than the rebels." Mark nodded. "I'm going to find out." He moved carefully through the narrow corridors, the metal walls cold against his fingers. His sidearm was ready, but he hoped it wouldn't come to violence. The rebel threat was dangerous enough. He didn't want enemies inside his own ranks. Turning a corner, Mark spotted a shadow slipping through the dim light. The figure moved quickly, but not quietly enough. Mark called out, "Stop. Identify yourself." The figure froze, then turned slowly. It was one of the ship's doctors, someone Mark had trusted until now. But in the doctor's eyes, there was something dark, something dangerous. "Why are you here?" Mark demanded. The doctor smiled thinly. "The queen is more than she seems. You heal her, but you do not understand. There are those who want her dead. There are those who want her to live. And I am caught in the middle." Mark's suspicion grew. "What do you mean?" The doctor's voice dropped to a whisper. "There is a secret weapon hidden deep inside the Empire's homeworld. The queen knows its location. She wakes fully and remembers she could unleash destruction the galaxy has never seen." Mark's heart pounded.
Oh.
"Then why not kill her now?" "'Cause," the doctor said, "some believe the weapon can only be controlled by the queen herself. Killing her means losing it forever. Rebels want the weapon to destroy the Empire. Others want to keep it for themselves." Suddenly the ship shuddered violently, knocking Mark off balance. Alarms blared and the lights flickered. Over the intercom, a cold voice announced, "Warning. Unauthorized entry detected. Security. Lockdown initiated." Mark grabbed the doctor's arm. "Tell me everything now." Before the doctor could answer, the door slammed shut, locking them inside the corridor. From the shadows, armed figures emerged, loyalists to the queen's enemies. Moving to silence anyone who stood in their way, Mark raised his weapon, heart racing. The fight was far from over. and the Queen's fate and the fate of the galaxy rested on secrets more deadly than anyone imagined. The ship's corridors were thick with whispers and shadows, the tension between hope and fear hanging heavy like a storm waiting to break. The rebel attack had faded, but its echoes lingered everywhere on faces, in the hurried footsteps of the crew, and most of all, in the fragile silence of the medical bay where the alien queen lay recovering. Mark watched her carefully. She was no longer the broken prisoner he first encountered, but a woman regaining her strength and control. Her sharp eyes now held a new fire, not just of survival, but of purpose. The question that burned in Mark's mind was whether that purpose was redemption or revenge. Their uneasy alliance had forced them together, bound by necessity and secrets. Each day Mark tended to the Queen's injuries, navigating the strange space between healer and captive. They shared long hours in silence, broken only by sharp questions and answers that felt like riddles. One afternoon, as the ship sailed through a field of distant stars, the Queen finally spoke, her voice low but steady. "You have saved my life twice now, human. Why do you continue to help me?" Mark didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the viewport at the endless blackness beyond. "Because the war isn't over," he said finally. "And because you might be the only one who can stop it." She laughed softly, a sound both bitter and sad. "Stop it. I have caused more pain than you can imagine. The blood of billions is on my hands. Why should I be the one to save the galaxy?" Mark met her gaze. Maybe because only someone who has seen that pain can truly understand how to end it. For a long moment they studied each other. Then the Queen's eyes narrowed. "Do you trust me?" "Not yet," Mark replied honestly. "Good," she said. "Trust is a luxury neither of us can afford." Their fragile peace was shattered that night. An explosion rocked the ship, throwing Mark against the cold metal wall. Alarms screamed, and red lights bathed the corridors. The rebel forces had launched a surprise attack. More powerful than the last, Mark rushed to the medical bay, finding the Queen already alert, her face pale but determined. "We must leave this ship," she said sharply. "It is no longer safe." "But the crew?" Mark asked. "The others?" "They will follow or fall," she said, eyes blazing. "I will not die in a cell. Not again." Together, they moved through the chaos, the Queen leaning heavily on Mark as they made their way to the escape pods. Blaster fire echoed around them, and the ship trembled under the relentless assault. As they reached the launch bay, the Queen paused. "Mark, I owe you my life. But no, this I am not the woman you think I am. My past is dark and my future uncertain. You will see the truth soon enough." Before Mark could respond, the escape pod sealed and launched into the void, floating in the emptiness of space. The pod's small window framed the burning remains of the ship they had left behind. Mark and the Queen sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Hours passed. Then, as the stars shifted outside, the Queen turned to Mark, her voice low and serious. "The rebels are not the only enemy. There are those within my own empire who wish to seize power by any means. I survived their betrayal, but they will not stop hunting me." Mark felt the weight of her words settle deep inside him. "What do you want from me?" "Protection," she said simply. "And a chance to make things right, if that is possible." The days that followed were tense. Queen's health improved steadily, but her past cast a long shadow. Mark found himself caught between his loyalty to humanity and the uneasy bond growing with the woman who had once been his captor. Questions swirled. Could she truly change? Was her desire for redemption genuiner? Just another step in a larger, darker plan? And most of all, could Mark trust the woman whose fate was now tied to his own? As the escape pod drifted toward an unknown destination, the galaxy watched and waited. The line between savior and enemy blurred, and the true battle for the future was only just beginning. The small escape pod floated silently through the vast emptiness of space. A fragile lifeboat carrying the alien Queen and her human savior farther from the ruins of their shattered ship. The stars outside blinked cold and distant, indifferent to the desperate lives trapped within the cramped metal walls. Inside, tension hung thick, as if every breath they took was borrowed from a future uncertain and dangerous. Mark stared at the controls, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. The Queen rested on the narrow cot, her once-proud face pale but steady. She had grown stronger, but her eyes still held secrets deep and dark truths that no one dared speak aloud. It was during one of the long, quiet hours that Mark made a discovery. While scanning through the Queen's data files on the ship's system, he found encrypted messages, hidden records that didn't fit with the stories she had told him. Messages from unknown sources, warnings and threats buried beneath layers of code. Curiosity and suspicion pulled at him. He knew the Queen was not telling everything. What was she hiding? Why? Later that day, Mark confronted her quietly in the dim light of the pod. "There are things you're not saying," he said. "Messages, secrets. Why keep them from me?" The Queen's eyes flickered with something unreadable. For a moment she hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You deserve to know the truth," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She told him then what no one else knew. The injury that had crippled her was not the result of battle as she had claimed. It was a betrayal won by those closest to her. Kay, trusted advisor, jealous of her power, had orchestrated an attack meant to kill her and seize the throne. Injury was a punishment. A warning to anyone who dared challenge the new order. The Queen's empire was fractured more deeply than Mark had imagined. The rebels were just one part of a dangerous puzzle. There were traitors within her own ranks, plotting and scheming in the shadows. And worse, there was a secret weapon hidden on the Empire's homeworld, capable of destroying entire planets. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Mark asked, voice hard. "Because trust is rare," she said bitterly, "and because I wasn't sure you would believe me." Mark's mind raced. This changed everything. The rebels and the traitors were both hunting her, then their enemies were far closer than he realized. And the secret weapon, if it fell into the wrong hands, the war would spiral beyond control. The pod systems beeped suddenly, an incoming message from an unknown source. The Queen's eyes widened as she recognized the signal. "It's from my loyalists," she said. "They're alive, and they have plans to rescue me." Mark felt hope and dread clash inside him. Rescue meant danger. It meant more battles and more uncertainty. But it also meant a chance to stop the war before it consumed them all. They prepared the pod to jump toward the coordinates the message contained, knowing it might be a trap. But waiting was not an option. The Queen's enemies were closing in fast, and the fragile alliance between human and alien was their only hope. As the stars blurred around them, Mark looked at the Queen and wondered, could this broken ruler become the savior the galaxy needed? Or was she still the dangerous queen who once enslaved worlds, now desperate to reclaim her throne at any cost? The answer lay ahead, in the cold, silent reaches of space, where betrayal and redemption danced on the edge of a knife. The rescue was more than they expected. Mark and the alien. Queen's pod slipped silently into the shadow of a colossal warship, black as a starless night and bristling with weapons. From the depths of that fortress, loyalists to the Queen emerged, ready to fight not just for her survival, but for the fate of the entire galaxy. As the doors opened, Mark's heart pounded. He glanced at the Queen, who had regained much of her strength. Her eyes, once dull with pain, now burned with a fierce determination. This was no longer the broken prisoner or the captive ruler. This was a queen reborn, ready to reclaim her. Throne or die trying, the loyalists welcomed them, but the tension was thick. Alliances had shifted, and old wounds ran deep. Mark saw the distrust in the eyes of the soldiers. They were unsure if this human healer was friend or foe. The Queen stepped forward, her voice strong. "We have little time. The rebels grow bolder, and traitors lurk within. We must unite or fall." Mark knew the truth behind those words. The galaxy was on the edge of chaos. The fragile peace they had fought to keep was slipping away, and the true battle was only just beginning. Together, they formed a plan. The Queen's knowledge of the secret weapon and the rebels' strategies was invaluable. Mark's skills and humanity offered new hope, but danger shadowed every step. As they prepared their fleet, Mark and the Queen spent long hours strategizing, sharing stories, and learning to trust each other despite their past. One night, under the artificial stars of the command deck, the Queen spoke softly. "You saved me when no one else would. I owe you more than life." Mark smiled tiredly. Maybe. Or maybe we saved each other. Their fragile alliance became a force stronger than either could have imagined. The final battle came swiftly. Skies above the rebel stronghold erupted in fire and fury. Fleets clashed in deadly dance, explosions painting the void with light and shadow. Mark piloted a fighter, weaving through blasts with skill born of desperation, while the Queen led her loyalists in boarding enemy ships, her presence a beacon to her followers. Amid the chaos, Mark received a message and encrypted warning. The traitors had made their move, attempting to seize the secret weapon for themselves. The war had grown even more deadly. The Queen and Mark raced against time, facing enemies on all sides. They fought not just for power, but for the future of the galaxy. In the end, it was not strength alone that decided their fate, but trust forged in hardship, betrayal, unexpected friendship. The Queen's empire survived, changed but stronger. The rebels and traitors were forced to retreat. Their plans shattered, and the galaxy learned a new truth. Even the darkest past can give rise to a new hope. As the stars glimmered beyond the command deck's windows, Mark and the Queen stood side by side, ready to face whatever the future held, because sometimes the most unlikely saviors are those who once were enemies.